Hello and welcome everybody to my presentation on the artifacts that are associated with our paper What Developers Care to Recall, an interview survey on smaller systems. That is a collaborative work with Regina Hebig and myself. And as you can see in the top right corner, we got the reusable and the available badges for our artifacts. So to give you a brief insight in what we did in this paper, we basically started from an ICSI 2018 paper in which we investigated how developers forget the source code they worked on in one of their systems. And we basically found that different factors like the ratio of their contribution and how often they worked on the source code have an impact on how well they can remember the source code. However, in discussions with Regina, it came up like, it's somehow unclear whether different types of knowledge may be better to remember or are considered more important to remember, and whether the importance or type of knowledge has an impact on the ability to remember knowledge. So for this paper here, we conducted a systematic literature review and we conducted an interview survey with practitioners and wanted to answer 3 research questions. Those are what knowledge they consider important to remember, whether they can answer questions about the system correctly from memory, and whether they can reliably assess the memory they still have about the system. So we basically try to dig deeper into the qualitative insights here. And just to give you a rough overview about what we found, we basically have some guidance for practitioners how to manage and disseminate knowledge. So basically we found that architectures and the intentions of the source code, so what should be implemented, are considered more important to remember, and they are also often tacit, so only experts have this knowledge. So somehow practitioners should improve the traceability for that knowledge. On the other hand, we have like code details or method levels, code smells and so on, and they consider those less important to remember, and arguably this should be encoded into clean code or some similar methodologies. And we also found basically difference for supporting experts versus novices who have different types of knowledge available to them. We also found that developers are better at recalling knowledge they consider important and that their self-assessment seems reliable. However, the more they recall about their knowledge, the more they also understand that they have some missing information, and then they decrease their self-assessments. And that opens some research directions that we want to investigate in the future, like different knowledge types in different contexts, like maintenance versus bug fixing tasks, and supporting developers with customized and tailored knowledge management techniques. However, considering the artifacts, I have some open questions that may be interesting to discuss in the ROSE Festival. The first one is, like the ACM badges, how can an artifact be reusable if it's not available? I said we got both badges. However, in some other studies, one is also involving myself and has been accepted now, we basically found, and some other researchers found, that links to normal repositories or institutional websites will basically have decay, so they will die at some point in time. I think in the link decay paper it's roughly 5 years of half-time. So at some point the artifacts are most likely not available anymore. And my question is basically, how can those artifacts be considered reusable if they are not on a repository like Zenodo that ensures long-term availability of the artifacts? And I think this is just a misorder in how the artifacts are assigned. Then my second question would be whether we can somehow refine and be more specific on the evaluation criteria. So this definition here is from the reusable badge, and it has those formulations like very carefully documented and so that it facilitates the reuse. However, like, doesn't every documentation that is not purposefully wrong improve or facilitate reusability? And what does very carefully mean here? Similarly, it refers to some norms and standards, and it's really confusing to which. Like, I know that different research communities have different standards, but I think it would be really important to give some concrete examples here, or maybe make it for the individual tracks really clear what is actually expected here. I think this could also help the reviewers, not only the authors of papers. Then I have a question whether we should separate more clearly between software artifacts and study material artifacts. As said, we submitted basically systematic literature reviews, a list of papers, and interview guides, and some R scripts on visualizations and statistical analysis. And for another artifact, we got the feedback that the data cannot be reused since it's focused on assessing exactly this type of model. And that was really confusing because it's still reusable. So it's a bit vague here. And last, what should actually be part of the artifact? I already said we included R scripts, but they got some negative feedback for reusability, but it's only visualizations. So thank you very much for your attention.